Welcome to our video about the Anunnaki. Who were they to humanity? The Anunnaki, also transcribed as Anunnaku, Anuna, Anunnaki, and other variations, are a group of deities of ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and also worshipped in ancient Babylon. In 1849, archaeologist Henry Layard led excavations in Iran at the ruins of Saparto, a city that no longer exists. It was once part of a glorious region called Mesopotamia. These archaeological excavations in Iran revealed clay tablets inscribed by the Sumerians, an advanced civilization claiming to have been created by beings called the Anunnaki. In the earliest Sumerian writings about them, dating from the post-Akkadian period, the Anunnaki are deities in the pantheon, descendants of An and Ki, the god of the sky and the goddess of the earth, respectively, and their main function was to guide the destinies of humanity. The name Anunnaki derives from Un, the Sumerian god of the sky. Anunnaki translates to royal blood or seed of Anu, not those who descended or those who came from heaven to earth, as many modern sources claim. Samuel Noah Kramer identifies Ki with the Sumerian mother goddess Ninhursag and states that they were originally the same figure. The eldest of the Anunnaki was Enlil, the god of the air and the chief deity of the Sumerian pantheon. The Sumerians believed that heaven and earth were inseparable until the birth of Enlil. Then, Enlil separated heaven and earth into two parts, taking the earth away while his father, En, brought heaven. The Anunnaki are mainly mentioned in literary texts, and very few pieces of evidence of a cult have been found so far. This is likely because each member of the Anunnaki had their own individual cult, separate from the others. Likewise, no depictions of the Anunnaki as a complete group have been discovered yet, although some depictions of 2 or 3 individual members together have been identified. Deities in ancient Mesopotamia were almost exclusively anthropomorphic. They were believed to possess extraordinary powers and were often perceived as immensely large in stature. The deities typically wore melem, an ambiguous substance that covered them in awe-inspiring splendor. Melem could also be worn by heroes, kings, giants, and even demons. The effect of seeing a deity's melem on a person is described as never described, a word for the physical tingling of the flesh. Deities were almost always depicted with horned caps, consisting of up to 7 overlapping bull horns. They were sometimes also depicted in clothing adorned with elaborate decorative gold and silver ornaments. The ancient Mesopotamians believed that their deities lived in heaven, following an earlier narrative of visits to earth in mythological texts, and that the statue of a god was a physical embodiment of the god himself. As such, cult statues were assigned constant care, attention, and a retinue of priests. These priests dressed the statues and held festivals before them so they could eat. The temple of a deity was believed to be the literal residence of that deity. The gods had boats, large barges usually stored in their temples and used during various religious festivals to transport their cult statues on waterways. The gods also owned chariots used to transport their cult statues on land. Sometimes, a deity's cult statue was transported to the site of a battle so the deity could observe the conflict. The principal deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon, including the Anunnaki, were believed to attend the assembly of the gods, through which the gods made all their decisions. This assembly was seen as a divine counterpart to the semi-democratic legislative system that existed during the 3rd dynasty of Ur, approximately from 2112 BCE to 2004 BCE. An Akkadian cylinder seal from around 2300 BCE depicts representations of the deities Inanna, Utu, and Enki, 3 members of the Anunnaki. The earliest known uses of the term Anunnaki come from inscriptions written during the reign of Gudea, approximately from 2144 BCE to 2124 BCE, and the 3rd dynasty of Ur. A famous example is the so-called Eridu Genesis, a Sumerian cuneiform tablet that portrays a creation myth and in which the Anunnaki play a significant role. The text begins with a description of the original conditions of the world when it was still a chaos of water and mud. The gods already existed, but they had not yet created order. The gods decide to organize the world and create humanity to do the work for them. They create humanity from clay and divine blood and give them life. The gods establish the city of Eridu as their residence and the center of civilization. They build a temple where the gods are worshipped and teach humanity laws and rituals. The gods decide to give humanity divine wisdom so they can rule the world justly. Divine wisdom is passed on to the king of Eridu as a divine gift. However, humanity begins to rebel against the gods and disobey their instructions. The gods are angered by the state of the world and the behavior of humanity and decide to destroy the world with a great flood to start anew. A single survivor of the flood is saved by the gods and blessed with divine wisdom. He is instructed to repopulate the world and guide humanity to rebuild civilization. The Eridu Genesis is a fascinating myth that had both cultural and religious significance for ancient Sumerians. It illustrates the Sumerian conception of creation and the relationship between gods and humans. These and similar texts provide insights into the Sumerian worldview and their hierarchy of gods, including the Anunnaki. In the texts, the term is applied to the most powerful and important deities in the Sumerian pantheon, who were the descendants of the sky god Anu. This group of deities likely included the seven gods in Enlil, Enki, Ninak, Nana, Utu, and Inanna. Although certain deities are described as members of the Anunnaki, no complete list of the names of all the Anunnaki has been preserved, and they are usually depicted as a cohesive group in literary texts. Furthermore, Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki inconsistently and do not agree on how many Anunnaki there were or what their divine function was. Originally, the Anunnaki appear to have been heavenly deities with immense powers. In the poem Enki and the World Order, the Anunnaki honor Enki, sing to him, praise him, and take up residence among the people of Sumer. The same composition states twice that the Anunnaki determine the destinies of humanity. Practically every major deity in the Sumerian pantheon was regarded as the patron deity of a particular city and was supposed to protect the interests of that city. It was believed that the deity permanently resided in the temple of that city. One text mentions up to 50 Anunnaki associated with the city of Eridu. In Inanna's descent to the underworld, there are only 7 Anunnaki who live in the underworld and serve as judges. Inanna stands before them for her attempt to take over the underworld. They find her guilty of hubris and sentence her to death. Major deities in Sumerian mythology were associated with specific celestial bodies. It was believed that Inanna was the planet Venus, Utu was the sun, and Nana was the moon. An was identified with all the stars of the equatorial sky, Enlil with those of the northern sky, and Enki with those of the southern sky. Enlil's celestial orbit was a continuous symmetric circle around the northern celestial pole, but An and Enki were believed to intersect at different points. Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian Babylonian representations of the national god Marduk depict him as a prominent member of the Anunnaki. Akkadian texts from the 2nd millennium BCE follow similar depictions of the Anunnaki from Inanna's descent to the underworld, which portrays them as chthonic underworld deities. In an abbreviated Akkadian version of Inanna's descent written in the early 2nd millennium BCE, Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, comments that she drinks water with the Anunnaki. Later in the same poem, Ereshkigal commands her Namtar to fetch the Anunnaki from Eagle-Gina, to adorn the threshold steps with coral, and to set them on golden ore. During the Old Babylonian period, a new group of deities, known as the Igigi, is introduced. The relationship between the Anunnaki and the Igigi is unclear. On some occasions, the categories seem to be used synonymously, but in other texts like the Poem of Era, there is a clear distinction between the two. In the late Akkadian Atrahasis epic, the Igigi are the 6th generation of gods forced to labor for the Anunnaki. After 40 days, the Igigi create a rebel, and the god Enki, one of the Anunnaki, creates humans to replace them. According to Sumerian tradition, the Anunnaki were said to have created humanity by conducting genetic experiments and mixing their own DNA with that of primitive humans. This creation story raises ethical and moral questions. The Anunnaki, as an extraterrestrial race worshipped as gods in Sumerian mythology, were considered creator beings and played a central role in the cosmic framework. Enki and Enlil were two of the most important Anunnaki gods, playing crucial roles in the creation of humanity. Enki was regarded as a scientist and creator, while Enlil was seen as a ruler and protector. Their differing views led to conflicts and power struggles. The Sumerians believed that the Anunnaki came from the heavens and created humans to mine gold for them. Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as half-human, half-divine, and giant beings. The Sumerians were pioneers in many fields, including the invention of the wheel, irrigation systems, and the first writing system. They also had remarkable knowledge of astronomy and the solar system. Overall, Sumerian texts and archaeological finds give rise to speculation about the role of extraterrestrial visitors in human history, although many modern scientists are skeptical of these interpretations. The creation story of the Anunnaki is the subject of intense debate and controversial interpretations. Some see it as a mythological account, while others interpret it as evidence of actual extraterrestrial influences on human evolution. Conspiracy theorists also claim that humans with Rh-negative blood are potential descendants of the Anunnaki, including well-known figures like Queen Elizabeth II and Tom Cruise. It is speculated that the Anunnaki visit Earth every 3,600 years and could potentially return in 800 years. These theories assume that the human race was created by a group of extraterrestrial beings known as the Anunnaki. They are primarily based on translations of cuneiform tablets purportedly carried out by Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin's book series, Earth Chronicles, forms the foundation for this theory. Today, the Anunnaki are often depicted as the equivalent of the Old Testament creator god. In contrast, the cuneiform corpus shows that the Anunnaki were portrayed in the ancient world as the Sumerian gods of ancient times. It is believed that the Anunnaki should be considered more as demigods or semi-divine beings. Edward Lipinski, a scholar, analyzed several ancient texts in 1971, including the Old Babylonian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and identified Mount Hermon and Lebanon as the residence of the Anunnaki. He cites lines from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which report the destruction of Humbaba, the guardian of the god's abode, and the two main characters, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, opening the secret dwelling of the Anunnaki. Lipinski argues that older Mesopotamian and Near Eastern Canaanite texts point to the cedar forest of Mount Hermon as the residence of the Anunnaki. He believes that the southern spur of the anti-Lebanon, Mount Hermon, is the place where the Anunnaki lived in the Old Babylonian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. He also points out that Mount Hermon was regarded in antiquity as the guardian of international treaties and connects this tradition with the oath sworn by the Watchers in 1 Enoch. Lipinski concludes that Mount Hermon is the cosmic mountain that connects the earth with the lowest heaven, and that the heavenly beings gather on the summit of Mount Hermon, as it is the mountain of the gods, the Canaanite Olympus. The area is rich in millennia-old altars and was still a site of cults and rituals at the time of Constantine the Great. Gilgamesh was known in the ancient world for having obtained knowledge from the world before the flood. This brings full circle to Lipinski's interpretation of the Old Babylonian version of the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which the ancient king travels to Mount Hermon, the residence of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods of ancient times, a pantheon of gods who were the children of the sky god Anu and his sister Ki. This corresponds to the biblical tradition that mortals were created from the dust of the earth, Genesis 2 verse 7. Apparently, Anu's consort Ki was not originally considered a deity and was elevated to the status of a goddess much later in the history of the myth cycle. Essentially, This would mean that the Anunnaki originated from a union between a sky god and a mortal woman who was later deified in mythical traditions. Ki is the Sumerian sign for earth, and Anu's consort is often considered the personification of the earth itself. The concept of a group of semi-divine beings born from mortal women is very similar to the biblical and extra-biblical tradition of the Nephilim. The Book of 1 Enoch, attributed to the patriarch Enoch, describes a group of 200 fallen angels, known as the Watchers, who descended to Mount Hermon and swore an oath to produce offspring with human women. This union led to the birth of great giants, who eventually consumed all the achievements of mankind and, when mankind could no longer bear them, turned against them and devoured mankind. These activities provoked the action of God, who cursed the giants to fight against each other and sent the archangels to bind the Watcher leadership in the valleys of the earth. The Hebrew texts refer to the mighty beings born from the Watchers as the Nephilim. In summary, the Anunnaki are often depicted in the ancient astronaut theory as extraterrestrial creators of humanity, while in the ancient world, they were part of the Sumerian pantheon of gods. Let's start where it all began, with Tiamat. In the rich waters of Sumerian Babylonian mythology swims a figure equally terrifying and fascinating, Tiamat, the goddess of primordial chaos. She represents the ancient chaos from which the world originated, embodying the salty ocean, while her consort, Abzu, symbolizes the principle of fresh water. Together, they represent the original elements from which the universe was formed. However, their peace is disrupted when Abzu is slain by Enki, one of the younger gods. In her fury, Tiamat allies herself with her son Kingu and creates an army of monsters to battle against the younger gods. The climax of this epic conflict is the battle between Tiamat and Marduk, Enki's son, as described in texts like the Enuma Elish. Ultimately, Marduk defeats Tiamat, splitting her in two to create heaven and earth. Tiamat's myth is rich in symbolic significance, offering numerous interpretations. As the goddess of chaos, she represents the unformed, wild nature of the universe that existed before the order and structure of creation. Her struggle against the younger gods can be seen as an allegory for the conflict between order and chaos, between the old and the new forces in the universe. Her division into heaven and earth marks the transition from unordered to ordered world, symbolizing the birth of the cosmos. Let's now delve into the realm of Enki, also known as Ea, the god of water and wisdom in Mesopotamian mythology. He was revered as the creator and protector of humanity, bestowing wisdom and guidance upon mortals. Depicted as a wise and benevolent figure in ancient Mesopotamian art, he ruled over the waters that nourished life in the Fertile Crescent. Often depicted with flowing streams or surrounded by aquatic creatures, he embodied the essence of fresh water and the wisdom he imparted. Mesopotamian worshippers honored Enki through elaborate ceremonies and offerings, acknowledging his role in providing the land with sustenance and fertility. Temples dedicated to him served as sanctuaries where believers sought his guidance in matters of wisdom and magic. Enki, the god of fresh water, was worshipped across various epochs and in different cities of Sumerian culture. Eridu was considered the primary center and main sanctuary of Enki. This city in southern Mesopotamia was one of the oldest Sumerian cities and the place where Enki was worshipped as the creator god and lord of fresh water. In addition to Eridu, Enki was also worshipped in other significant Sumerian cities, such as Uar and Isin. Alongside Enlil and Inanna, he was one of the principal gods of the Sumerian pantheon. For a long period from the 4th to the 2nd millennium BCE, Enki was worshipped in numerous temples in Mesopotamia as one of the central deities of Sumerian religion. Over time, Eridu lost its significance as a religious center, while Uruk rose to prominence. There, Inanna assumed an important role as Enki ceded his central position in the Sumerian pantheon to her. In summary, Enki was worshipped as the god of fresh water, wisdom, and creative spirit for centuries, especially in Eridu but also in other significant Sumerian cities. He played a central role in the Sumerian belief system. In Mesopotamian cosmology, Enki was credited with the creation of humanity and the bestowal of divine gifts, such as writing and craftsmanship. Mythological tales abound with stories of Enki's cunning and benevolence, from his role in averting disasters to his aid in averting droughts. Enki's interventions shaped the fate of mortals and gods alike, earning him reverence as a protector and benefactor. As the waters of ancient Mesopotamian rivers continue to flow, let us contemplate the enduring legacy of Enki, the god of water and wisdom. Though millennia have passed since the height of his worship in Mesopotamia, Enki's influence still echoes through the stream of time, a testament to his enduring presence in the hearts and minds of believers. Let us now immerse ourselves in the legend of Enlil, the mighty god of air and wind in Mesopotamian belief. Enlil was revered for his control over the elements, shaping the winds and storms that swept across the ancient landscapes. As an impressive figure, he was often depicted with majestic presence and symbols of authority. His influence as the god of winds extended over heaven and earth, shaping the forces of nature. Enlil, the supreme god of the Sumerians, was worshipped in various cities and at different times. In Nippur, the religious center of the Sumerians, he was regarded as the highest deity, and his temple stood atop a ziggurat, a temple tower. Enlil was also worshipped in Sumerian cities like Uar and Isin, where he was seen as the god of wind, air, and earth. Over many centuries, from the 4th to the 2nd millennium BCE, Enlil was one of the most important gods of Sumerian religion and was worshipped in numerous temples across Mesopotamia. Alongside Enki and Inanna, he was one of the chief deities of the Sumerian pantheon. Mesopotamian priests and followers honored Enlil through elaborate rituals and offerings, seeking his protection from storms and his blessing for bountiful harvests. Temples dedicated to Enlil served as sanctuaries where believers sought comfort and guidance in times of need. Enlil played a central role in Mesopotamian cosmology, governing the forces of nature and maintaining the balance of the cosmos. His authority as the Lord of the Winds illustrated the raw power and unpredictability of the natural world. Mesopotamian mythology is rich in tales of Enlil's exploits, portraying him as both a benevolent guardian and a fearsome judge. From calming storms to unleashing devastating tempests, Enlil's actions shaped the fate of gods and mortals alike. As storm clouds gather in the sky, let us ponder the enduring legacy of Enlil, the god of air and storms. Though millennia have passed since the height of his worship in Mesopotamia, Enlil's presence still echoes in the winds that sweep across the ancient landscapes, a testament to his enduring power and influence. Next, let us embark on a journey into the realm of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, and explore the dark secrets and symbolism surrounding this powerful deity. Ereshkigal was revered in Mesopotamian mythology as an imposing queen of the dead, ruling with an iron fist over the realm of the deceased. She commanded respect and fear from both gods and mortals. In ancient Mesopotamian art, Ereshkigal is often depicted as a somber and regal figure, ruling with a firm hand and a compassionate heart over the realm of the dead. She is also portrayed with symbols of death and rebirth, embodying the cyclical nature of existence. Mesopotamian mourners honored her through solemn rituals and offerings, acknowledging her role as the protector of souls and the arbiter of fate. Temples dedicated to Ereshkigal served as gateways to the underworld, where believers sought solace and guidance in the face of death. Ereshkigal's mythology is replete with tales of her interactions with gods and mortals, from her tragic romance with Nergal to her fierce rivalry with her sister Inanna. As the queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal embodies the darkness and mystery that shroud the realm of the dead. Her realm is a place of shadows and secrets, where the souls of the departed wander for eternity. Yet, despite her fearsome reputation, Ereshkigal is also a symbol of renewal and transformation. Just as the seasons cycle from life to death and back again, so too does Ereshkigal preside over the eternal cycle of existence. As we delve into the depths of Ereshkigal's domain, let us contemplate the mysteries of death and rebirth that lie at the heart of Mesopotamian mythology. Though the centuries may pass and civilizations rise and fall, the legacy of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, endures as a timeless symbol of the human experience. Sure, let's continue our exploration. Moving on to the goddess Inanna, we encounter a figure of great complexity and significance in Mesopotamian mythology. Inanna, also known as Ishtar in later Akkadian mythology, was revered as the queen of heaven and earth, embodying the dual aspects of love and war. She was worshipped across ancient Mesopotamia and beyond, with temples dedicated to her in cities such as Uruk, Nineveh, and Babylon. Inanna's mythology is rich and multifaceted, reflecting the diverse roles she played in the lives of mortals and gods alike. As the goddess of love and fertility, she presided over matters of passion, desire, and procreation. In this aspect, she was often depicted as a voluptuous figure, radiating beauty and sensuality. However, Inanna was not merely a goddess of love, she also held dominion over the battlefield. In her martial aspect, she was a fierce warrior, riding into battle to defend her followers and assert her divine authority. This duality of love and war made Inanna a complex and powerful figure in Mesopotamian religion. One of the most famous myths involving Inanna is the tale of her descent into the underworld. In this story, Inanna seeks to visit her sister, Ereshkigal, in the realm of the dead. Along the way, she must pass through 7 gates, at each of which she is required to remove a piece of her clothing or jewelry, symbolizing the stripping away of her divine attributes. When she finally reaches the throne room of Ereshkigal, she is naked and vulnerable. In a shocking twist, Ereshkigal kills her sister and hangs her corpse on a hook. Inanna's loyal servant, Ninshubur, seeks help from the other gods, who eventually intervene and rescue her. Inanna is revived and returns to the world of the living, but she is forever changed by her journey to the underworld. The descent of Inanna is often interpreted as a mythological explanation for the changing of the seasons, with Inanna's death and rebirth symbolizing the cycle of life, death, and renewal. It also serves as a metaphor for the trials and tribulations faced by humans in their journey through life. Inanna's mythology is vast and varied, encompassing themes of love, power, and mortality. She remains one of the most enduring and influential figures in Mesopotamian religion, inspiring devotion and reverence for millennia. Now, let's turn our attention to the god Shamash, the solar deity and god of justice in Mesopotamian mythology. Shamash was revered as the bringer of light and warmth, illuminating the world with his radiant presence. He was also worshipped as the ultimate arbiter of justice, presiding over legal disputes and ensuring the fair treatment of all. In Mesopotamian art, Shamash is often depicted as a radiant figure seated on a throne, holding a rod and ring, symbols of his divine authority. He is surrounded by rays of light, symbolizing his role as the sun god. Shamash's worship was widespread across Mesopotamia, with temples dedicated to him in cities such as Larsa, Sippar, and Babylon. Shamash's role as the god of justice was central to Mesopotamian society, where law and order were considered essential for maintaining harmony and prosperity. People turned to Shamash for guidance in legal matters, trusting in his wisdom and fairness to resolve disputes. One of the most famous myths involving Shamash is the Epic of Gilgamesh, where he aids the hero Gilgamesh in his quest for immortality. Shamash provides Gilgamesh with divine protection and guidance, helping him overcome various trials and obstacles on his journey. Shamash's mythology is intertwined with themes of light, justice, and divine authority, making him a central figure in Mesopotamian religion. His worship persisted for centuries, enduring through the rise and fall of empires, a testament to his enduring significance in the hearts and minds of believers. Lastly, let's explore the god Anu, the supreme deity in the Mesopotamian pantheon. Anu was revered as the father of the gods, residing in the heavens and ruling over the cosmos with divine authority. He was often depicted as a regal figure seated on a throne, holding a scepter and wearing a horned crown, symbols of his power and majesty. Anu's role as the supreme god was reflected in his association with the sky and celestial phenomena. He was believed to control the movements of the stars and planets, guiding the course of destiny for gods and mortals alike. As the ruler of the heavens, Anu was worshipped with great reverence and awe across Mesopotamia. Despite his lofty position, Anu's interactions with mortals were limited, and he played a relatively minor role in Mesopotamian mythology compared to other gods such as Enlil, Enki, and Inanna. Nevertheless, his status as the head of the pantheon ensured his importance in religious ceremonies and rituals. Anu's mythology is steeped in symbolism and mystery, reflecting the ancient Mesopotamians' awe and wonder at the vastness of the cosmos. His worship persisted for millennia, from the earliest Sumerian city-states to the later Babylonian and Assyrian empires, a testament to his enduring status as the father of the gods. In summary, Anu's role as the supreme deity in Mesopotamian mythology underscores the ancient Mesopotamians' fascination with the heavens and their desire to understand the forces that govern the universe. His worship shaped the religious beliefs and practices of countless generations, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of the ancient Near East. Certainly, let's delve deeper into the fascinating world of Mesopotamian mythology. Next, let's explore the figure of Enki, the god of water, wisdom, and magic in Mesopotamian mythology. Enki, also known as Ea in Akkadian mythology, held a prominent place in the pantheon as one of the most influential and multifaceted deities. Enki was associated with the freshwater sources vital for life in Mesopotamia, including rivers, streams, and underground aquifers. As the god of water, he was revered as the provider of life-giving sustenance and the source of fertility for the land. His importance in agricultural societies cannot be overstated, as access to water was essential for the success of crops and the prosperity of communities. Beyond his role as a deity of water, Enki was also revered as the god of wisdom and knowledge. He was believed to possess boundless intelligence and insight, capable of unraveling the mysteries of the universe and bestowing wisdom upon mortals. Enki was often depicted as a wise old man, with a flowing beard and a knowing smile, symbolizing his role as the ultimate source of knowledge. In addition to his association with water and wisdom, Enki was also revered as a master of magic and craftsmanship. He was believed to possess the secret knowledge of the gods, including the ability to create and manipulate life. Enki was credited with the creation of humanity, fashioning the first humans out of clay and breathing life into them. One of the most famous myths involving Enki is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. In this myth, Enki plays a central role in the creation of the world, using his wisdom and magic to bring order out of chaos. He battles against the forces of chaos and darkness, ultimately emerging victorious and establishing the divine order of the cosmos. Enki's mythology is rich and complex, reflecting the multifaceted nature of his role in Mesopotamian religion. He remains one of the most revered and beloved deities in the pantheon, worshipped by ancient Mesopotamians for his role as the giver of life, knowledge, and magic. Now, let's turn our attention to the goddess Ninhursag, the mother goddess and queen of the earth in Mesopotamian mythology. Ninhursag, also known as Nintu or Ninmah, held a central place in the pantheon as the divine mother who nurtured and protected all living things. Ninhursag was associated with the earth and its fertility, embodying the nurturing and life-giving aspects of the natural world. She was often depicted as a maternal figure, with wide hips and ample breasts, symbolizing her role as the source of nourishment and sustenance for all creatures. As the mother goddess, Ninhursag was believed to be responsible for the creation and care of humanity. According to myth, she worked alongside Enki in the creation of humanity, shaping the first humans out of clay and imbuing them with the breath of life. Ninhursag watched over her creations with loving care, guiding them through the trials and tribulations of life. In addition to her role as a mother and nurturer, Ninhursag was also revered as a healer and protector. She was believed to possess great knowledge of medicinal herbs and healing arts, capable of curing illness and restoring health to the sick and injured. Ninhursag was often invoked in prayers and rituals seeking protection and healing for individuals and communities. One of the most famous myths involving Ninhursag is the myth of Enki and Ninhursag, which explores the complex relationship between the two deities. In this myth, Ninhursag creates a paradise garden for Enki, filled with lush vegetation and flowing waters. However, Enki becomes intoxicated and proceeds to eat the sacred plants, causing Ninhursag to curse him with various ailments. Ninhursag's mythology highlights the ancient Mesopotamians' reverence for the earth and the natural world. She remains a beloved and revered figure in Mesopotamian religion, worshipped for her role as the mother and protector of all living things. The Mesopotamian sky god, one of the highest deities, known as in Sumerian and Anu in Akkadian, belongs to the oldest generation of Mesopotamian gods and was originally the supreme deity of the Babylonian pantheon. Consequently, his main function is to be an authority figure, a decision-maker, and a precursor. In the heavens, he assigns functions to other gods and can elevate their status at will. The earliest texts do not refer to his origin. Later, he is regarded as the son of Anshar and Kishar, as in the creation epic of the first millennium Enuma Elish. In Sumerian texts of the third millennium, the goddess Uras is his consort. Later, this position was occupied by Ki, the personification of the earth, and in Akkadian texts by Untu, whose name is likely derived from his own. He is often given the epithet Father of the Gods, and many deities are described as his children in one context or another, including Adad, Enki, Enlil, Inanna, Nanna, Nergal, and others. Temples and shrines for him existed throughout Mesopotamian history in various cities. From the 3rd millennium BCE, he was worshipped with interruptions alongside Inanna in the Inanna Temple in Uruk and during the Achaemenid and Seleucid periods, in the New Res Temple with Untu. Another important center of his cult was the which, like Uruk, bore the title City of Anu. In Lagash, Gudea, ca. 2144 to 2124 BCE, built a temple for him, while Uarnama, ca. 2112 to 2095 BCE, erected a garden and shrine for him in Uar, and also had a seat in the main temple of Babylon, Isagil, and received offerings in Nippur, Sippar, and Kish. In Assur, during the Middle Assyrian period, ca. 1350 to 1050 BCE, a double temple for An and Adad, Emilamina, was built, and appears for the first time in Assyrian royal inscriptions around the same time. However, in the 5th century BCE, his cult experienced a revival in Uruk, and ritual texts from the Seleucid period describe his statue's participation in the local Akitu festival. Although An was considered the highest god, he was often perceived by people as a more distant deity. Direct prayers to him are rare, but he is mentioned in rituals and hymns. One of his special attributes was to watch over divinity and immortality. The goddess Ki, personification of the earth in the Mesopotamian pantheon, was one of the significant deities. As the personification of the earth, she played an important role alongside sky gods like An. She was not originally considered a goddess and was elevated to the rank of goddess later. In Sumerian texts of the 3rd millennium BCE, Ki was considered the wife of the sky god An. Later, this position was occupied by Untu, whose name is probably derived from Anu. Ki was also equated with other earth goddesses like Uras. Some sources refer to Ki as the mother of the gods, giving her a role similar to An as the father of the gods. Temples and shrines for Ki existed in various Mesopotamian cities, especially in centers of earth worship like Nippur. Ki also had an important cult place alongside other deities in the main temple of Babylon, Isagil. As the personification of the earth, Ki was a central deity responsible for fertility and life on earth. Together with An and Enlil, she was considered part of the highest triad of gods governing the universe. Ki played an important role in creation mythology, especially regarding the creation of humanity. Iconographically, Ki was often depicted as a female deity with attributes of fertility and earth. Her cult and worship were deeply rooted in Mesopotamia for centuries, although she did not always have the same prominence as An or Enlil. Overall, Ki was a central goddess in the Mesopotamian pantheon, playing an important role in cosmology, creation myths, and fertility cults. Her cult was present in various regions of Mesopotamia over long periods. In the ancient writings of Mesopotamian culture, the divine couple En and Ki are often considered manifestations of heavenly and earthly forces that maintain the universe in harmony and balance. And the supreme sky god embodies divine order and authority over the cosmic heavens, while Ki, the goddess of the earth, represents fertility and life on the planet, and is often depicted as a powerful and majestic god who reigns over the heavens. In ancient Sumerian texts, he is often portrayed with a royal diadem and scepter, emphasizing his role as the supreme ruler. His presence exudes an aura of authority and power, while his gaze spans the world and the heavenly spheres. The iconography often shows him seated on a royal throne, surrounded by symbols of his power and dominion over the divine order of the universe. In contrast, Ki, the goddess of the earth, whose form represents the abundance and fertility of the planet. She is the life-giving force that blesses the land with her maternal kindness and bestows abundant yield upon the fields. Ki is often depicted surrounded by lush fields and blooming flowers, underscoring her connection to nature and the living earth. Her presence radiates a warm and inviting atmosphere as she watches over the land and envelopes its inhabitants with care and protection. Together, En and Ki form a divine pair that embodies the dual forces of the universe, the heavenly order and the earthly fertility. Their union symbolizes the unity of heaven and earth, of spirit and matter, which forms the foundation of Mesopotamian cosmology. Through their joint rule over the universe and their symbiotic relationship, they ensure that balance and harmony between the heavenly and earthly spheres are maintained, and that life on Earth thrives in abundance and prosperity.